with Tim Gilbert and Julie Snook. This is Racing Dreams.
Well, I'm almost exhausted. There's been that much racing. There's been that much wonderful racing, and we're tired and we haven't run anywhere, Julie.
Thank God we haven't run anywhere. Good morning and good morning to you at home. It has been a phenomenal Everest Carnival this year. I tell you what, off the back of the last couple of years, it feels like Sydney and the rest of the state has just come out to party and to celebrate. And
to double down on that, you've got Melbourne going off, you've got Sydney going off. It's been absolutely unbelievable. We've got a big show.
We do have a big show, so let's take a look at what's coming up this morning. Dancing all the way to Newcastle, we're live to Chris Lees with the winning trainer of the inaugural Big Dance.
We're live to Kembla Grange as we count down to the $1 million The Gong.
And we introduce you to Arrowfield's Susan Archer as part of our Women in Racing series. Do love Susan.
Oh, absolutely. Now, a huge day of racing on the first Tuesday in November with Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace going on a gold trip.
Meanwhile, Sydney was celebrating on Tuesday for the inaugural Big Dance at Royal Randwick.
And one man who danced all the way home is Newcastle trainer Chris Lees. I'm going to ask you about the big dance in just a big tick, but you are down there in Melbourne on the banks of the Yarra. You got Luncey's today in the Queen's Cup, mate.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for having me on. Luncey's goes around in the Queen's Cup. Going really well, this preparation. He was a little luckless in the Geelong Cup and the format of that race has stood up well. Competitive race today, but I think he'll make his presence felt.
Talk about covering some ground. So Sydney, Newey, Melbourne, has there been a whole lot of dancing since you took out that inaugural race?
Not a lot of dancing, really.
What, you're not a dancer, Chris Lees?
On the ground, but no, not a dancer. On the inside. Yeah, look, well, the show goes on, doesn't it? You know, we're racing nearly every day, so you don't really have a time to sit back and reflect too much in this game, but it was certainly a great thrill on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, tell us about it. Rustic Steel, this talented gelding. Yeah,
look, it was a race we set him for a long time out. He won the Scone Cup to qualify for the Big Dance, you know, being a race for Country Cup winners throughout the state, and so it was a long-range plan, and we thought he was coming up quite nicely. Had a couple of little hiccups along the way, but he produced on the day. He got a lovely ride from Nashua Willa, which of course helped, and able to get the win. Well,
you said it yourself, of your four runners, he was probably the forgotten horse in this race. But let's just take a look back at Tuesday's race.
The Big Dance, we're ready to go. And they're off and racing. Rustic Steel jumped well together with Caesar's Palace and Ready to Humble there together with Surf Dancer. Rustic Steel's winding up with a good run. Surf Dancer at the 200, a length in front, but Rustic Steel is closing in and Cisco Bay on the outside. Rustic Steel in front of Cisco Bay. Rustic Steel a half to Cisco Bay. Rustic Steel's clinging on. Rustic Steel wins the Big Dance just from Cisco Bay and Sabak. Finished in third.
Rustic Steel's won the first Big Dance. Nashua Willa and Chris Lees held off Cisco Bay. Sabak will run third. The dance will reside in Newcastle.
Chris, there are just so many of these new concepts popping up. What did you make of the race? What did you make of the day itself?
Well, it was a great day. I think the crowd was really involved. We had a the weather was turned on perfectly for us, and I think it was well received. Obviously, first year of the race, and how they went about it to qualify. I think it was very well received by all participants and people in racing, and it was a great day all around.
It really has incentivised people in regional areas, hasn't it? And look, I know that not all the horses are regionally or country trained, but the whole idea of winning those cups, it just gives an injection of a connection to the city. And look, they've been doing it tough, whether it be drought, floods. It's great to be seeing an initiative like this from Racing New South Wales.
Yeah, and it's of course it's for horses that probably aren't in that top echelon, and they get a chance. Connections get a chance to race for $2 million in prize money. It's really well received and a wonderful concept.
Chris, Rustic Steel, what's planned for him? He's no longer running in the 5 Diamonds today.
Yeah, we considered backing him up, but just thought it was just a little bit quick off such a tough run that he had on Tuesday. So every chance he'll go to the Gong in a couple of weeks' time.
The Gong, we've got the Gong and the Hunter. I know you're looking forward to the Gong, but you must be really looking forward to the Hunter because that's in your home backyard.
Yeah, look, it's I think we're up to about the fourth running of it. It's another day that's been so well received. It's taken over from Newcastle Cup Days, our biggest day, with a standalone Saturday. And I think they'll get a great crowd. Now the crowds are back to normal and looking forward to next Saturday.
All right, a quick look at today's racing. We'll start at Rose Hill in the Hot Danish Stakes. Night of Romance making her Australian debut. Yeah,
first run. She just come out of quarantine last week, done 2 weeks at Canterbury, and she's settled in really well. Australian bloodstock, they've got a knack of buying these imported horses, so they feel she's the right horse for a race like this, so I think she'll be most competitive.
What about Samud, our candidate? You've got quite a few today.
Yeah, we've got a number of runners. Samut, she's come back in really good fashion. First time at stakes level this preparation, so jumping a few grades. But if they're making ground on the day, she'll be very strong late. And our candidate, he's coming out of a Cessnock Cup win, but he's a fit old horse in a bit of form, so I think he'll run well for us.
And of course, you've got Ventura Ocean in the Furphy handicap. That's race 5. But of course, the big one, you're down in Flemington. How's the team feeling?
Yeah, really pleased with the horse. I think he's ready to run up to his best. Just needs a little bit of luck in the early stage, and if he gets a few things go his way, I think he can be figure in the finish.
I know you keep your cards close to your chest, but you've been in good form. You had a nice win on Oaks Day as well.
Yeah, that was a really pleasing win with Rosita. Well-bred 3-year-old filly to get a bit of black type. Very pleasing for all.
I'm curious to know what it will take to get Chris Lee's dancing.
Oh, if Newcastle Knights win the premiership again, I think you'll do more than dance. You'll jump in the Yarra.
Geez, sadly, I think I'll be pretty old then, Tim. Anyway,
you and your Zimmer frame. Good on you, mate. Good to talk.
Thank you both. Cheers.
The training duo of Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace have written their names in the history books with 5 chances in this year's Melbourne Cup. It took them to a gold trip to get there, Julie.
And the good news is it looks like we'll see the stallion here in Sydney for the championships, with plans to aim at the likes of the Tancred and the Queen Elizabeth Stakes in the autumn.
Let's revisit Tuesday's win.
Gates are back and they're racing. They're off in the cup and Knight's order towards the outside. The best. Gold Trip moves up, takes the lead from Dover Legend. 250 metres to go. Emissary running on. Gold Trip, 150 metres to go. Wondering about getting tired. Emissary has tried very hard, but Gold Trip is brave. 100 to go. A length and a half. Emissary. Gold Trip is going to win the Lexus Melbourne Cup.
Unfortunately, I didn't tip it.
That seems to be the story of the season for us.
Yeah, but I did have something on Emissary, which was about $7.80 the place, which got me out of jail. Now, it is 5 Diamonds Ladies' Day at Rosehill Gardens today.
And our next guest is one of the leading ladies in the industry, the powerhouse behind Star Thoroughbreds, Denise Martin. Good morning to you and welcome in studio.
Thank you, Julie, very much. Thank you.
Now, over the past 27 years, the famous purple and white silks. Tell us briefly about this wonderful journey.
Oh, well, originally from Tasmania. I was a school teacher for just a short time.
Yeah.
And then about just over 25 years ago, nearly 30 years ago actually, I decided to start my own business. And I thought I wanted to sell horses. I wanted to bring new people into racing. And the industry at the time had a number of really successful people, but it was just almost still in its infancy. And so I started Star.
The famous purple and white silks have become rather synonymous with many of the best. It's been such a big spring here in Sydney. What have you made of the changes to this carnival? What have you made of the growth and bringing in this new generation of racing enthusiasts?
Well, it's been spectacular, really. Every day there seems to be another $2 million race or a $4 million race, and if you haven't got 2 or 3 runners in either, you think, where are we going here?
Yeah.
But I think it's all part of the evolution of how racing is changing, and the authorities in this state have been extremely proactive in developing new concepts. The Everest is now, I think, 6 years old. You know, the 5 diamonds, there's the, you know, the golden eagle, the silver eagle. Name an eagle, there's one for you. So it's, I think it's amazing. And Everest Day was just extraordinary. I've never seen so many people in Sydney, so it's fantastic.
It's great to see, you know, like these 2 major jurisdictions so powerful. It's been a remarkable week in Melbourne as well. And Chris Waller, who you work with so closely, has had runners in both states.
Yes. He's amazing. He's able to discuss the horses, you know, in great detail. They perform well wherever they run. So he's an extraordinary person.
He is an extraordinary person. You've worked with him for such a long time now. Talk to us about the rise of Chris Waller. I know we were chatting a little bit earlier, but for such a quiet, shy man, he has all the eyes of the world on him because his story of success has just been remarkable, and he's a wonderful human to boot.
Does he ever sleep?
Yeah.
Well, I can't say, but he certainly doesn't sleep at the stables anyway. No. I know that. Well, look, he's a workaholic, and he's, you know, he has great skills. He's wonderful at managing people and motivating people. His knowledge of horses and racing is extraordinary. When I moved my business to Chris 10 years ago, he said, I don't know if I'll cope with the people. And I said, well, if you look after the horses, I'll look after the people. And that's how we work things. And it seems to work really well.
Oh, it does. It works fantastically well. Well, just let's look at a few horse names. Sebring. When I say the name Sebring to you, what does that evoke? My wife is into horses. She's actually got a Sebring gelding at our place, which she's retrained. What about Sebring?
Well, look, he was an amazing story because at Magic Minions, the year I bought him, he was a pass-in. Nobody wanted him. So eventually I bought him, and then when I offered him initially to a group of people, again, nobody wanted him because he was by More Than Ready, who at the time, seems odd now, but he wasn't fashionable then. So eventually we got a group of people together at the end of the year, and I didn't think remotely that we were, you know, likely to win a Golden Slipper. I remember it was a very miserable day. It was wet and cold, and it was the year after EI, and so the Golden Slipper in that year was in April. And I was with Gay. We watched the race downstairs underneath the covered way at Rose Hill. And I remember Gay grabbed my arm and said, you've just won the slipper. And I said, how does that happen to a school teacher from Tasmania? Which I guess sort of explains how racing is in this country. Everybody can be involved, and it was just the most wonderful day.
And we talk about that a lot on this program, that everyone can be involved, because perhaps there was once a very different perception, but we're seeing now with the syndicates that are coming through, so many more young women are wanting to be involved in the racing industry. You can go to the sales. We've got Magic Millions coming up, and of course the Inglis Easter sales as well. You really can get involved with your mates these days and just be part of something pretty extraordinary.
That's what people do. People start off and say to me, I don't know anything about racing, and I always say, good. I'll try and help. I'll help you through it, I hope. And that's what happens. We start off and they learn a little, and as we progress, they learn more. And so I think it's an opportunity to take not only your friends to the races, but you can take your family. If you're playing golf, it's just you. If you're playing tennis, it's just you. If you have a share in a horse, everybody can go and watch them race. So I think that's what's so special now. It can be something that, you know, everybody can aspire to. Owning a horse was something only a few could do years ago, but everybody can now.
Yeah, and you've dovetailed into one of my favourite phrases, and Julie's not going to be happy here, but you can be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and you can still have ownership in a horse. Now, I find it difficult to see how you can track them all because you've got quite a few interests across a number of horses with lots and lots of people. But what are some of your favourites at the moment? What about a horse like Kiku?
Well, she's been a terrific filly. She's earned nearly $1 million. She's a Group 2 winner. She's by, you know, much sought after stallion Zoo Star. She's 5, and she's very much of the mould that, you know, Chris trained so expertly, because she's better at 4, 5 and probably 6 and 7 than she was at 2 and 3. And we had another great filly called Invincibella. When she was 5, I said to Chris, is it time to sell her for breeding purposes now? He said, no way. And she won the Magic Millions $1 Million Mares race as a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. So when you have those horses that get longevity, and they very often do with Chris, you get the opportunity for people to enjoy their racing for many seasons, and I think that's spectacular.
We see that with Nature Strip today.
Exactly.
8-year-old.
Yeah.
Do you have favourites? Are we allowed to ask that question? Has there been a favourite over the years?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, look, a horse like Sebring won 30 million for his owners with the sale to stud and prize money as a juvenile. He won 5 or 6 starts as only a 2-year-old. He didn't race at 3. So you've got to love a horse that is so spectacularly successful. But I really loved Invincibella. I loved Thesio. He was just a great war horse. He won 5 Group 1s and over 3 million. And you love those horses that just give their all, and he did. So I think he might nearly be, by a centimetre, he's nearly my favourite.
They are beautiful too, aren't they, horses? They really are just wonderful. And I think it's important to further endorse the whole knowledge that we all know, that you can't get anywhere near close to this industry unless you love them.
Yes. Well, people I find start off and they say, I like horses. By the time they've got a share in one and then maybe got a share in 2 or 3, as the years go by, they just say, I now know what you mean, they're special. And I said, they're intelligent and they're just beautiful animals, so we love them.
Just before we let you go, you've got some runners coming up. You've got one on debut, I should say, at Doomben.
Yes, well, he's called Chrysaor, and I had to phone the people in Queensland to make sure the race commentator knew how to pronounce the name. I believe it means, the word is a brother to...
Brother to Pegasus?
Pegasus, that's it. Yes, thank you.
Some of the general knowledge.
Yeah, I know. You're a mine of
no, it
information.
threw into my ear from the producer. I can't claim
Mine of
that.
information.
You cannot claim that one.
No.
A brother to Pegasus. But look, he's juvenile today at Doomben, and I think he's talented. So they're very excited. We've got a runner at Flemington called Agnelli, and he's got a chance as well. But I was just saying to Julie before, when the babies are having their first start, people say to me, do you get nervous? I said, no, except when the babies are starting off.
Yeah.
That's exciting anyway.
Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old that's going to start early next year, but the whole process of training and the due diligence that needs to go into it, it's quite a process. Denise, look, thanks so much for coming in. We love having a chat.
I wish we could talk to you longer.
Yeah, welcome.
Please stay longer.
Thanks, Julie.
We'll see you soon. We'll see you soon.
Well,
Coming
please
up,
you
Jules.
stay longer.
Absolutely.
Coming up, counting down to the running of the Gong, plus we introduce you to Arrowfield's Susan Archer as part of our Women in Racing series. Thank you. Welcome back. You're watching Racing Dreams. The Everest Carnival might be wrapping up today, but racing certainly marches on. In a fortnight, we head to Kembla Grange for the Gong.
Yeah, CEO of the Illawarra Turf Club, Peter De Vries, joins us now. Good morning to you, Peter, and you must be looking forward to the Gong.
Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Tim. Yes, it's 4th running of the Gong. It doesn't take long to become established, does it?
What has a race like this done for the Turf Club, for the region? We were talking a little earlier in the program that it's been a pretty tough few years, and it's nice to see people getting back to the racetrack and really embracing days like this.
We're getting very, very good response. We had a magnificent opening of the race in its first year. And then, of course, we were inhibited a bit by COVID restrictions in the next 2 years. But the response has been superb. To some extent, we had a Melbourne Cup day here on Tuesday, and our crowd was probably down a little bit. But I think the reason for that is that people are concentrating on the Gong. It's had that much of an impact on our racing program.
It's big racing territory too, isn't it, where you live and many of the districts around the area of Wollongong.
Yeah, and the history, the short history of it so far, has really allowed local trainers to take an active role. I mean, Count Rupi, trained by Rob and Luke Price, won last year, and the year before, Kerry Parker ran third with Think It Over, who went on to do amazing things after that.
And I was having a look online last night. It looks like a lot of your tickets are sold out already. You guys are doing really well when it comes to the attendance.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
That's not that's not to say that we still don't have room for people. Most of our package tickets have sold out, but people can go into Mosh Sticks and see what's still available. One of the big features of this is an area that we created 4 years ago called the Little Gong, which is at about the 200-metre mark, and it's a little village, if you like, of its own. It's got food trucks, it's got refreshment tents, it's got TAB outlets, and it's basically a place that's become extraordinarily popular, and it gives such a tremendous atmosphere to the place to have people cheering the horses as they're really getting into their final action.
Yeah, passing of a legend last week too, with Gwenda Marvel going, of course.
Yeah, a very sad thing. Gwenda will be a great loss to us here. To say she was a horsewoman is an understatement. She loved her horses, she cared for her horses, and there's not much more you can say about a person than that they were truly involved in the work they were doing and cared for the animals that they had under their care.
It was almost fitting that her last ever run, a nautical mile, was a sentimental favourite in the opening race at Sydney last week and was guided to victory by Alicia Collett on board. I imagine that would have put a smile on Gwenda's face, and it had been a very special victory.
Put a smile on a lot of people's faces at Kembla when that happened. It seemed like poetic justice, didn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, getting back to racing and some of the initiatives that have been brought in over the past couple of years, how much has it helped Kembla?
Oh, I think it's helped us tremendously. I mean, the interest in the Sydney Spring Carnival at the present time is absolutely tremendous, and it had suffered a little bit in the last 10 to 15 years. I think it's been brought back to being as good as the autumn, and that's a huge statement, because the autumn has always been Sydney's sort of bailiwick and the thing that the time that we get judged on in New South Wales. But I think the spring has found its way to be equally as good.
That is excellent to hear. Fingers crossed for sunnier skies in a couple of weeks' time. Peter de Vries, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you, Peter. Really appreciate that. And this season, we've brought you our Women in Racing series. And this week, we'd like to introduce you to Susan Archer.
Of course, Susan is an integral part of the team at Arrowfield Stud. She's one of our favourites. But she also has her own remarkable journey in the racing industry. Take a look at this.
My name's Susan Archer and I'm the Communications Manager at Arrowfield Stud. I've been at Arrowfield for 12 years. I am living my dream. This is a job that, for me, is just the peak of my career. I might have been a journalist, I might have been a teacher, but what got me was the racing bug very early. I grew up in a small town of Gore in Southland at the bottom of New Zealand. My parents were very much involved in sport, my father in rugby, my mother in basketball, but they really shared a great interest in horse racing. So horse racing was part of what we did as a family. By the time I was 13, I was writing a tipping column in the local newspaper, and that was really the beginning. The key thing was meeting my husband, Michael Martin, and he was living and working on a small property near Cambridge called Fencourt Farm, adjusting broodmares and preparing yearlings for sale in the Waikato, and we met in Hamilton actually, and I don't know, we had a fantastic connection and a great shared interest in the industry, and that really started me on the path to where I am now. I got a lot of opportunities to do media, broadcasting, writing work while I was raising our two children. Came back to New Zealand as a couple to work together for the New Zealand Thoroughbred Breeders Association. Michael is the chief executive and me as the media manager. We had a fabulous 10 years together, and I feel so proud of being able to work for the New Zealand thoroughbred industry, and particularly the people who work and invest in it and achieve such extraordinary success. In 2002, I interviewed John Massara, And it was an interview we both enjoyed enormously, and he never forgot it, I never forgot it. And 8 years later, he offered me a job at Arrowfields.
She's 5 in front, Sunline, and a piece of racing history. Back-to-back Cox plates for the champion mare, Sunline. She's won it by 6 lengths easily.
It's so wonderful meeting young people who say to me, oh, Sunline was the horse that turned me on to racing. And she's so celebrated in Australia, and I just feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude and pride in her. You know, 20 years after she retired, I look back at her and I look back at what we did. We had a mortgage and 2 children and no money. We had 2 broodmares and we bred this extraordinary horse. She was a granddaughter of a mare that my parents had bought at Trentham in 1981. So there was a bit of a family connection as well. I think she gave us so much and gave the industry so much. And well, I'm always going to be happy to have my name attached to Sunline. Thoroughbred horses are truly extraordinary animal, a biomechanical miracle. The author of Seabiscuit described the thoroughbred as God's rocket, and I think that sums it up perfectly. An absolutely extraordinary animal. But I think looking back at my childhood and what grabbed me about racing, more than anything was the colour, the characters, the stories, and the competition. And what I love most now is being part of an amazing team at Arrowfield, working in a brilliant industry in Australia, a world-leading industry. In the 21st century, it's pretty amazing that horses are still doing that, still changing people's lives and still giving us so much joy and excitement and fun. And it's wonderful to be a small part of telling that story to the world. Lucky I work with all these incredible young people, so many wonderful young people in the industry, and I think a large part of my role now is supporting them to be the best that they can be and build Arrowfield and build the industry so that it will be flying in 20, 30, 50 years' time, and I love being a part of that.
Oh, we love it. We love our Saturday mornings. It's our favourite hour, and great to have you along for Racing Dreams. Joining us is the great man himself, Daisy Thomas, with all the latest markets from PointsBet. He's had a busy week, Days.
Certainly have, and what a week it has been. Can't believe we're actually starting to wrap up this awesome Spring Carnival already, and we're going to do it today as we wrap up the Everest Carnival up there at Rose Hill with the 5 diamonds over 1,800 metres, and this should be an absolute cracker with Ellsberg your favourite, albeit on a slight drift. $2.55 here at PointsBet, out to $2.80 at the minute. Law of Indices there been really well supported on the second line of betting there at $3.80, as is Uncle Bryn into third favourite, opened at $10 on Wednesday here at PointsBet, into $7.50. Ayrton there, always rock solid at $7.50. Diamil, Sibak, $11 and $17, and Rebel Roma and New Mandate round out the blowout chances. From Rose Hill, we turn our attention to the final day of the big Flemington Carnival, Champions Day down here, and aren't there some champions doing battle? Oh boy, you better believe it. Nature Strip, $1.82 in from $2.05, trying to flip the script from the Everest on Gigakick, who is there at $4.60. Gigakick, 2 goes down the straight here at Flemington for 2 wins. So lots of support coming with PointsBet punters for that runner. Ballanipatina there on the third line of betting, could be a little bit of a blowout chance. Levante there, $21. Rock and Horse, 23s. And you can have $29 or better the rest of the field. The next one is the Champions Mile, of course, over 1,600 metres. And this, well, again, going to be an absolute cracker. We talk of champions. Well, Private Eye just starting to really elevate himself up into that category. $2.55 and really well supported. No surprises there after that dominant win in the Nature Strip Stakes only a week ago. My Oberon, well, the import, 1 start in Australia, 1 win, can't knock that form. Well supported here at PointsBet, $4.60. As is Alligator Blood, $5.50 in from $6.50. Cascading a touch easy, 6 out to 7. Mr. Brightside, $10. Tuvalu, 10s out to 12s. Aegon and Kiss Some, the blowout chances. The Champion Stakes, well, we rounded out with the final Group 1 of the Flemington calendar, and it starts with Animo. Well, what about this campaign from this horse? $2.05 in from $2.20. The best supported runner here at PointsBet. I'm thunderstruck. What a campaign this horse has put together as well. $4. Again, another one. Head-to-head rematch trying to flip the script and really well supported to do so. Zaki a touch easy again. $6.50 out to $7.50 with the improving track. Malunga there at $12. Elliptical $16. Hinge $19. And Mr. Maestro, a little nibble there. 27s into $23. If you are going to have a bet, of course, head across to the PointsBet app, download it today where you can get access to all those markets and many, many more. Now featuring racing.com form analysis, get expert tips, race previews, form factors. If you are going to have a bet, of course, please remember to gamble responsibly. Tim, Julie, it's back to you in the studio.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we are, my dear friend. Thank you, Daisy.
Well, of course, we see him every week on Racing Dreams, giving us the latest markets. But before he was a media personality, Daisy Thomas was a champion footballer from a small country town in Victoria.
I caught up with Daisy on a recent trip to Melbourne to find out how he went from AFL Premiership winning hero to Racing Dreams superstar.
I've had a few horses, some pretty slow ones. The fun part of it is why I got involved. Those picnic races I talk about down at Drawn was one of the races that we targeted. I'm not too sure how many people target a picnic, but we certainly did that with a group of mates, and we got a winner in the last race. That was a very exciting day, and from there we've had a few that have gone around. No city winners, but we had a few that have raced country meets and got a few wins there, and you know what it's like when whether you're winning a Melbourne Cup or a Drawn picnic, as soon as they're first past the post, it's still pretty exciting.
What about your footy career? Where did it start?
Started back in Drawn, just a little skinny country kid running around. Grew up on a small hobby farm, love for football, and you know, from sun up to sundown would be out in the paddock kicking the ball around, and progressed through the grades at Druin and then Gippsland Power, and fortunately enough way back when in the end of 2005 to be drafted to Collingwood.
And what a magical journey, over 150 games, premiership.
Yeah, the Collingwood days were obviously fantastic. It was something that, you know, one I look back on really fondly now. I am retired of, but once you are retired, you sort of can appreciate it a little bit more as to what you did and how you got there, and the determination, hard work, and the heights you were able to achieve. Because you know it's a tough game. It's, you know, I didn't have the greatest build for it, I guess, but to manufacture a career with the assets I had, I'm certainly proud of.
It's been an interesting ride for you since, hasn't it? PointsBet particularly taking you around the world.
I'm a racing enthusiast. I love my sport. I love my racing. I love everything really, and I don't mind a punt on it. So. The opportunity came to work with PointsBet, and from there, I've been fortunate enough to go across with them to Denver before the Super Bowl. We went and watched the Nuggets with a couple of our clients, and then, just recently getting up to Sydney to meet Shaq as well.
What was that like?
He's a very quiet, sort of unassuming man, if you can be, for 7 foot or whatever he is, but no, he was really cool, very giving of his time.
Look, you've played against some pretty big humans. He's massive.
He was massive, and we talked about, I watched a few of his highlights. We got to interview him, and I watched a few of his highlights. He played in that sort of aggressive big man manner, and as a smaller bloke, they were the ones you were either trying to jump over or run away from, and every now and then they caught you, and you're just like, this is not going to end well. We asked him the question, what sort of player do you think you'd be? And instantly he just got that little look of aggression in his eye of, I would block you and I would hurt you. And I was like, I 100% believe that you would do that and you would enjoy it. So, the beauty of our game is that you've got big men, but not all of them play big. So he would be someone that you'd love to run alongside, because you know that you certainly have your back.
You enjoying Racing Dreams? Enjoying coming on the show that you can't afford to miss?
Oh, mate, I am. I really enjoy the show. I obviously get to sit down for the best part of 40 minutes before I go on and do my spot, and get to enjoy the show and the interviews and insight that you're bringing to the punters and about the industry. It's great. The horses are one part of it, the trainers the other part, the jocks as well, but then the identities in and around it. You've got owners, the strappers and whatnot. So the insight you guys bring to a punter on a Saturday morning, I think is fantastic, and loving my small part in bringing the punters the odds and hopefully finding them a winner or two.
Oh, he's a great personality and a great addition to Racing Dreams. Daisy Thomas, what a player he was as well.
Yeah, it's so good to have him on the show, and thanks for sticking around to watch that story too, Daisy. We can see you there. Stay with us. The racing community's rally to lend a hand for the land. We'll have all those details about this story up next after the break.
Well, the racing industry is known for banding together, and it's now rallying to lend a hand for the land and help those impacted by the devastating Victorian floods.
Yeah, joining us now is Deanne Guest-Jones from Merrick Station in Victoria. Good morning to you, Dee.
Good morning. How are you going, Julie?
Dee, we're well. How did this Lend a Hand for the Land initiative come about?
Well, actually, what happened was the shock morning of the floods, there was a call out for everyone that we could get in and help. And I can't say I was on the front line, but I did arrive a little later in the day to help out. And I was working alongside some people that I've worked with in the industry for 20 years, and I could just see the look in their faces and the horses that we were loading on trucks and moving, the shock. And I just sort of came up with this idea that, you know, we always sort of work together to help each other. And I kind of held it inside for a little while, but then as I kept talking to people post the flood, it just kept coming up and up again. And so I called James Price from Inglis, and then in turn we spoke to Tim Patterson from DMC Media, and the boys have just been incredible, and they just said it's a great idea, let's just do it. And the premise behind it basically is just to lend a hand to get these farms just back up. We are so busy at the moment. We're foaling, we're rebreeding, and we're trying to prep yearlings for sale. And you know, there's a shortage of staff. Everybody across the board knows that. And so just to get people back to the point where we can function again is what we're trying to achieve here. And that's sort of where it came. And it's just sort of grown and snowballed with the effect of people just wanting to help and that sense of community that we have for the thoroughbred industry.
Dee, I was down in Melbourne a couple of days ago having a chat with some of the boys from the farms, and look, it was all hands on deck, wasn't it? Like saying that the phone call, got a phone call 4 o'clock, put your wetsuit on, we've got to move some horses from here to there, and it all happened so quick.
Yeah, it did. And to be honest, I can't say I was on the front line. Our farm is based on the Mornington Peninsula, so we're 3 hours away from what happened there. But I just happened to be up foaling a mare in the morning very early, and when my girls sort of said, "Oh, have you seen this?" I just grabbed one of my staff members, get the float, and called the boys, and you could just hear. And I just said, "What do you need?" And I just picked it up on my way to get there. And like I said, I wasn't a part of the boats and the movement. I can't take that.
But you're helping out, and there are plenty you don't need to justify that. There was plenty of people that did, and you're helping out. So it's like it's a team effort.
Oh, absolutely. And look, you know, I've been in this industry for 25 years. I grew up here, and I just want to give back. And we've set up some dates, but it actually the 11th and the 13th, and we're just asking people to go to Lend Hand for the Land and register if they can help on those dates. But we actually have future dates because the water hasn't receded yet, and there's so many farms that we can't actually go in and help. And, you know, so there will be some more dates announced, but what we can is just get a little bit of help and to get these places back up and going so that we can care for these amazing animals.
Yeah, we're looking at the pictures now, Dee. They're just extraordinary. You're seeing people out there in, you know, shoulder high water. We're seeing it here in the state of New South Wales at the moment as well. We've got livestock being helicoptered from one place to another. This is such a huge operation throughout both states. What are you asking people to do? When you say lend a hand, what type of roles will be available to help with?
Look, mainly it doesn't have to be skilled jobs, to be honest with you. There are a lot of really down ground level jobs to be done, boxes to be cleaned out, paddocks to be cleaned up, all the debris to be removed. But if we can get some guys in that might be able to help us fix pumps, put fencing back up and things like that, just so that we can get the horses back onto the land, that would be fabulous. And it's not about financial, what you can give, it's just some time. Just like when farmers band together, like come in, and you don't necessarily have to know what you're doing. Just come, bring a friend, and pick up some debris and do what you can. And that's all we're asking.
They're great people at Inglis, aren't they? They're great sponsors
Fabulous.
of our program through the autumn, and like a lot of these yearlings will be sold at the Premier Sale next year, which we no doubt will be at.
Absolutely. And James was headed this for me. He just took the reins because obviously I'm still running a farm. And he just said, look, I've got time. I'm going to help you do what we can. And so they've been brilliant in this. And I can't thank James or Tim enough for their help. They've been amazing.
Well, the first Lend a Hand for the Land Working Bee takes place Friday, November 11 to Sunday, November 13, with more dates to come. You can head to lendahandfortheland.com.au. Dee, thank you so much. Well done on all your work, and we wish you and the team all the best there.
Thanks very much, Julie and Tim. I appreciate the call very, very much.
No, thanks for coming on the show. You're doing a cracking job, and it's what Australia's all about. People just get together and help, which is wonderful.
It's been a very, very tough spring indeed. Well, the final day of the Sydney Everest Carnival gets underway at Rosehill Gardens today. I can't believe it's the final day. Let's bring in resident tipster Brad Gray. Good morning to you, Brad.
Good morning, guys. Good to be back with you. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at the track last week. I missed that show, but I did tune in. And the most devastating part was I missed the kebab chat. I heard Tim talking about kebabs, and being a boy from Bankstown, born and bred, kebabs are very close to my heart. So
before we get into the tips, just very, very quickly, how do you present your kebab? I'm an all-sauce man. It's like all sauces, everything you can put on, pickles. What do you have?
Yeah, I'm a hummus chicken man. I did go with maybe like a mixed kebab early in the day, but it's just too much going on, so I generally stick with the chicken.
Yeah, you're more refined.
Yeah.
We're tackling all the big issues, aren't we?
What about the golden gift today for 2-year-olds?
Yeah, well, this is a dead set lottery, this race. There's 2-year-olds, there's a lot of first starters. We're coming through. The Kirkham Plate is your obvious form reference. Now, of course, this is a big race for these 2-year-olds because first and second pretty much guarantees their ticket into the Golden Slipper, given it's worth $1 million. So I'm with Coincide. Gabe Waterhouse, Adrian Bott, I thought he was very good in the Kirkham Plate. He ran second. He's got gate speed. He can offset that wide draw today, make his own luck, and I think he can only improve from a couple of weeks ago. So Coincide, he's around $6.50, $7. Maybe have something on him each way. Race 7, the Hot Danish Stakes. Yeah, this is for the mares, for the fillies and mares, I should say. So this is my best bet of the day, guys. I'm going with the 3-year-old here. She's a belter for Peter and Paul Snowden. Now, you go back to a couple of weeks ago, first up in the invitation. This horse had absolutely no luck whatsoever. It was all dressed up, nowhere to go on the inside. Dare I suggest she would have won the race if she got clear running. Now, she was only first up there. You can forecast improvement from that. And you go back to her 2-year-old form, and she is a ripper on top of the ground. So a nice firm surface. She'll relish that today. She'll park midfield, and I think she'll be too good.
I think Ellsberg will win the 5 Diamonds. What do you think?
Agreed. Yep, I agreed. Short but sweet with him. The other thing in his favour here, Tim, is there's no speed on paper. So I don't think there's many go-forward horses in the race. So you combine the fact that he's absolutely airborne, arguably the best horse in the race, and he's going to get complete control up in front with Tommy Berry doing the steering. So Epsom form's good form. We've seen him since. He won the 5 Diamonds Prelude by 2.5 lengths, dominated, straight to the front. Catch me if you can, and I don't think they will.
All right, let's roll Brad Gray's graphic and take a look at his best bets. It will tell us your best bets today and your roughies.
Yeah, so the best bet, she's a belter. We've touched on her. Now, the roughies, race 5, he's a hot shot. He's another one that looks to get control in front, so he'll go forward. He's first up. A couple of nice trials trained by Björn Baker. And the other one, we'll save one for the lucky last. It's always good to keep one in the top pocket in the get-out stakes. Arnaker. So that comes up in race 10. I like him nice and fresh over 1,400 metres.
3 Group 1s at Melbourne today. Extraordinary champion sprint. What happens there? Does Nature Strip just get out in front and win this thing? Giga Kick, Bella Nipotina?
Yeah, I think he does. The market says as much, doesn't it? I thought we might get a bit of a price about Nature Strip, but look this morning and he's odds on. So fair enough. Down the straight, no excuses. He won't be 3 and 4 deep here like he was in the Everest, will he? So I think he'll bounce back, the big boy, and remind us why he's the best in the world.
What about Animo?
Yeah, well, he's hard enough to beat, of course. He's a champion. I don't think he's over the line, though. I love the run of I'm Thunderstruck last start. And a nice big straight there, plenty of time to wind up. $2, I think it's on the skinny side. Dare I suggest that maybe I'm Thunderstruck is the bet there.
I've been on I'm Thunderstruck throughout. Of course, last year's Golden Eagle winner.
Yeah.
Nick Price, Michael Kent Jr., big friends of this show. If you had to put your last $10 on to try and get yourself a free kebab at Bankstown, what would it be on as we put your graphic up, my friend?
In terms of today's bets, I'd go with She's a Belter in the hot Danish. So it's sticking with the food theme there. You can buy yourself a kebab, and if you've got a little bit extra left, maybe go to the pastry or the bakery and get yourself a Danish.
We're going to roll your graphic. We've been having a few technical difficulties here in the studio, but we're going to take a look at all your tips for the day, because this is where I get my iPhone out and I take a screenshot and we go through everything. So talk us through. We've got best bet, race 7.
And I can say she does do this.
I'm
She's
actually
taking the screenshot there. She's a belter, mate. Race 7, 5 diamonds. You've gone for Ellsberg. I'm with you there. Golden Gift, it's coincide. He's a hot shot. That's a roughie you mentioned before. And Arnica in the Get Out Stakes in race 10. It's been a pretty decent carnival, hasn't it? Great Everest Carnival, but great Melbourne Cup Carnival this week too. So racing in this country is just on such a high at the moment.
And it just keeps rolling, doesn't it? Next week, of course, we go to the provincials, where the standalones, you got your Gongs at Kembla Grange. Next week, of course, Newcastle in the Hunter. So once upon a time, this carnival went for what felt like a couple of weeks. Now it goes for what feels like 6 months. So long may it continue.
It does feel like we've been here for some time, hence why we're talking about kebabs and the like.
Oh, no, kebabs would be part of the conversation.
There's worse things to talk about.
Oh, we could start getting onto meat pies, those little Villies ones. They're sensational.
I think between the three of us, we've consumed...
I've got nothing on you when it comes to the meat pies, Tim. I'll leave that to the experts.
I know you don't. I'm fading away to West Rose Hill over here.
To be fair, I think between the three of us, we have, when we've been at the track this season, we've consumed enough meat pies.
At least you've got an excuse. You're eating for two.
All right, Brad, but we'll see you next week for our very last show of the season. Of course, it is the final day of the Everest Carnival today at Rosehill Gardens. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Good on you. And just mentioning, looking sartorially elegant there. He'll drip his kebab on his tie later. All right, a big thank you today to Racing New South Wales, Pete and the crew. Of course, they really support our show, as does Arafil, John Massara and the whole family, the team, and PointsBet. Of course, we saw a little insight into Daisy today.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to Susan Utter for your time as well. We love sharing those stories. Stay with us, because we're back again next week. You can't get rid of us just yet. We've got one more show to go. We'll see you same time next Saturday.
Take care.